as you start thinking about these different pathways, right? We need to have these introduction to these pathways so students can start finding their interest. But the other part of this was once you have these pathways, you need to start creating an increasing intensity of opportunities for students, right? And if you look at it, we need to start with just classroom visits. We need to maybe do some class tours. We maybe need to do job shadows. We need to do mock interviews. Each one of those increase intensity until we get all the way up to, 400 plus hours in youth apprenticeship. And some of these intensities should be in elementary and middle school. Some of these can be in high school. And then we know by the time you're a junior and senior, if you know what you want to do and you know you're in the right pathway, go do it.
Hello and welcome to the Future is Clear Teach Like It's 2045 webcast series. My name is Scott Carr from CESA 2. Today's topic area is Wisconsin Career Readiness Standards, how it all got started. Joining us today is Mike Trimberger from the School District of Random Lake and Mike Snowberry, Director of Learning Services at Luxemburg-Casco School District. Mike Trimberger is the Superintendent of the School District of Random Lake. He's been a special education teacher and building administrator at the elementary, middle, and high school levels. Mike has extensive experience at each level of the K-12 system in both urban and rural settings. Mike is also the board president and co-founder of Inspire Wisconsin, which serves over half the state of Wisconsin in building business education partnerships. Mike has led statewide implementation of career-focused partnerships with some of the smallest and largest school districts in the state of Wisconsin, which has led him to chair the Wisconsin Department of Instruction's Career Readiness Standards implementation. Mike Snowberry is the Director of Learning Services at Luxemburg-Casco School District. Mike has been a teacher, has worked in athletics, has been an administrator at the middle school and district office levels. His current role, his primary responsibilities is to foster academic growth, promote social and emotional learning, and offer career readiness opportunities for students. In addition to his work in the district, he serves as a part-time transformational leader at Initiative One, where he partners with school district leaders to help them strengthen their ability to solve problems and make impactful decisions. Both of these individuals are great leaders in our state and in their educational communities, and I'm super excited to have both of them here today. Appreciate it. Glad you guys could make it. Welcome. How are you doing?
It's going great. It's always hard to hear people reading things about yourself, but thanks for that introduction. Really appreciate that.
Yeah. Well, as I kind of joked through email, you guys sent me all of your bios, and they're like 2 pages long, and I thought, well, I'm not going to be able to get through all of that. But yeah, you guys have a great history in education. You both have been doing some phenomenal things, especially as a whole, but especially around the career readiness work that we're going to talk about today. I do want to say that I was glad that I stumbled across the two of you at the ARC Network over at CESA 1 and listened to your presentation around the Wisconsin Career Readiness Standards. So I knew right away, as soon as you guys started talking, I said, I'm going to nail these guys down, and we are going to do a webcast for sure. So I really appreciate it. Thanks for joining.
You bet.
A pleasure. Appreciate it.
Yeah. So hey, let's get started. Tell our listeners here, what's your journey? How did you get where you're at? How did you get involved in some of the great work that you're doing right now around that career readiness?
Well, I'll start off here and just a little bit about kind of where we started. We started with CESA 7 and Michelle Ring Hansen, and she came in and we had a district level committee where we met about 8 times a year for the entire school year. Yeah. And that process helped our staff and our administrators really see what should ACP look like, sound like, feel like. And as I started exploring it, I realized the big gap that we had at our high school level, right? And so it made me shift and think about, and so that all of the changes in the programming are a result of that start and that all those conversations. So I feel very privileged to be able to have worked with Michelle and help me to see things through a different lens and to really push forward and do that work. And then Been fortunate enough to run into my other people like Mike Trimberger and across the state who are just as passionate now as I am in this area, and just trying to join forces and making it better for all students in Wisconsin. And really, that's the purpose of being here today, is what knowledge we can share with you to help you move your district forward. And then we get excited when we hear about more kids in youth apprenticeship, more kids taking college credits, more kids, whatever area it is. It's just exciting because we know we're making progress towards that 2045.
And yeah, how long ago was that? What, the work that you did at CESA 7?
Probably right when the ACP kicked off, when the new state law came in, as that around 2015, 2014.
Yeah.
Somewhere in that area. It's all kind of a blur, as you know, when you're an administrator. You just keep on grinding and you pick off the next thing. So
yeah. Well, I was at CESA 7 for a while, and I know that, we crossed paths, when I was there. And yeah, for sure, I think that they were great leaders with this work, as far back as what you're talking about. So yeah, that's awesome. Mike Trimberger, how about you?
Yeah, you know what, Scott? My journey goes back a little bit farther, and I do want to just say, Mike and Scott, I feel like there's an army starting in the state of Wisconsin, right? There's soldiers. We're getting this, we're experiencing this, and we're loving it. I don't want to give too much away from our keynote that's coming up for our conference, but I always joke, my journey started in college. I'm 6'7", I was 325. I was told to go to college to play football, and I didn't have any idea what I wanted to be. No joke, my first college, I went to be an engineer, and I was disappointed when I found out I wasn't going to drive a train, So I joke, it took me almost 8 years to get my undergrad. And I always joke, I have a Ferrari invested in my brain, and it's in a lot of different areas. And it wasn't until I got into education that I'm like, we need to find ways to engage kids and look at education differently. So just my post-secondary, I was an elementary principal in a very high needs school. And one of the most profound experiences is I would ask my elementary students, what do you want to do when you grow up? And over the 3 years, I heard predominantly three answers: either what mom and dad did, they wanted to work at a grocery store or gas station, or it was work as a garbage or fireman or policeman. And that's all the careers kids would see, especially coming from our high needs areas.
Yeah.
And it really told me we need to look at this differently. And the last 15 years, between working in a high school and now at the district level, when you start showing kids why school's important, and they start taking the skills they learn here and they apply them out in the real world, and they start seeing that we actually know what we're talking about, it creates a movement that we're seeing right now. And I know I'm preaching to the choir with this, but that's what we're going to get into here today: is how do we re-image what education can look like to really make it impactful for your kids and your community.
Yeah. I think our journeys are somewhat similar. Graduated, high school back in the mid '80s, with two older brothers that did very well in K-12 systems. Went on to college, and that was the thing back then, right? It was either college or trades or a job, or go figure it out. And my dad looked at me and said, "Well, you want to drive a truck?" Because he was an over-road truck driver, or do you do you want to go to college? And I was like, ah. And I was fortunate to be able to go into college and play football. So I was like, yeah, I want to continue to play that sport. But even in college, I wasn't sure, right? I wasn't sure what I wanted to do. And I think education kind of fell into my lap after, same with you, Mike, man, a number of years in college. And but we look at that as a flaw of our system, right now. I think anyways that we're not preparing our youth to be able to make informed decisions, and our system's not aligned to be able to do that. And we really need to shift that, reimagine it, so we can have our youth walking out with a better plan. Yeah. I really appreciate it again, you guys, for joining us. We got about 45 minutes to an hour. We could probably spend half a day talking about some of this stuff. But let's start with the why. why is there the need for change? Why do we need to see our educational systems switch, change, transform, reimagine so it involves a career readiness, community readiness approach? What do you think?
I was just talking to a couple of my building principals here, and we've all been in the game here 20 some years. Our kids are different than when we started, right? Like there is just it's different. Our students have more information at their fingertips than they've ever had.
Mhm.
You joke there's some studies that say that we have attention spans the size of a goldfish now. We need to look at things differently, right? And you have our students are different, but our world is different. You look at how much information is being created on a yearly basis. We need to look at education differently. There was a time 20 years ago that we could have that slow and steady pace and continue to do it. But we need partners. We need help. We need to go back to that African proverb of it takes a village to raise a child,
Yeah.
because we're in a different world than we were even 20 years ago. And if we really look at it and we find ways, we can find how to partner with our communities and give our kids those really exciting things that they want to have.
Yeah.
Let me kind of add a little bit to that, walking through the shoes of the students. I think too often we only walk through our own shoes, and we really got to think about that. Well, the stakes are a lot higher, right? So if I spend 8 years in college now, what is my college debt, right? And then thinking about the cost of trying to afford a house and the cost of trying to have a family and the cost of, and I think about it for my own kids, right? As they're going
Yeah.
through this system. And so, well, both of you, I had the opportunity to explore lots of different options in college. That's not a very good experience for students in today's world due to the cost of everything, right?
Yeah.
We can't put our society in debt so they can't even get themselves out by the time they retire. And really, I always ask myself why, you know what I mean? Like, it really comes down to you guys found your purpose, right? Personal purpose is probably the most powerful thing you can find because it's an
Yeah.
internal motivator, but it took you time to do that. So,
Right.
can we shift and really help high schools solve that problem and help each student leave with a personal purpose or closer to their purpose that they've tried out a few things and have a closer avenue before they leave high school? I feel like really that's kind of the goal. Um, I was at a conference and that people wonder what is innovation or I can't be innovative. Innovation is really just solving a problem, right?
Mhm.
And so you just have to figure out what problem we're trying to solve. And the problem is high schools have not done a great job of helping kids find their personal purpose and
Right.
what do they want to do after the fact and what do we need to change? I mean, it's that simple. It's not on its face because it takes a lot of work and leadership and having a different mindset. But I really feel like that's the why that we're trying to solve here at the Luxemburg-Casco High School.
Yeah, Mike, that really resonates with me and it kind of gave me goosebumps because the work I'm doing in districts, at the front end when we start, one of the questions that I ask those in the room, right? It's generally a superintendent, district office level staff that are directors that are, Scott, what is this work? What do why do we need it? Like we talk about the reasoning behind it. And one of the questions I lead with is if we walked into a 10th grade math class, pulled a kid out and asked them, hey, what's your purpose? What would be the response? And boy, can that really open up some eyes as you have that conversation. And in the 5 years I've been doing this, I've probably done that maybe a couple hundred times with students. And typically most of the responses of a high school kid, they look at you and say, what? What do you mean? And and I'll say, well, the class, in the class you're in, what's your purpose? And generally it's around credit achievement. And so that's a great reflection as to are we doing the right things, right? Are we setting the right goals, which generally have us then playing a certain game towards that goal, and really we're not. So yeah, I really appreciate that you're leaning into that purpose for students. It's definitely needed. So let me ask this question to the two of you. then why do we, and I bet you guys are doing some of this, but why do we need to connect our classrooms then to careers and career readiness and that deeper learning experiences?
Sure, I'll start there. From a learning perspective, there's 16 career clusters currently in Wisconsin, and nationally they shifted it down to 14 career clusters, right? And
Mhm.
and it's not really either way, it's semantics. If you think about it, all of our classrooms lead to something in one of those career clusters or a part of a career cluster. And how do we help kids then navigate and explore those areas, right? So if we're not doing that, why am I learning this? That's the first thing a student's going to ask you. And when you can answer them, we're
Yeah.
exploring 16 career clusters or 14 career clusters. This is going to help you decide, should I go into healthcare? And if the answer is no, that's awesome. Should I go into manufacturing? What is it that I want to try to do? And so that connection is huge. The other part is I don't know that high school teachers always see that bigger picture. I'm here to teach you math or science or social studies instead of I want to have a bigger impact on your life by teaching you science, social studies, math through a careers lens to help you grow into something bigger and more opportunities. And it's
Yeah.
just a shift. It's a semantics thing, but it's also then the way that I walk the walk and talk the talk and do
Right.
the work, right? Like that's what makes it fun.
And I know you guys have heard this story, but for the listeners, I think it's important. I think in public education, our purpose was crafted back in 1958, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
And that purpose was every student should go to college. And the reason that narrative was really rammed down public education's throat was the National Education Defense Act, that was a reaction to Sputnik being launched and our country thinking that we are falling behind the Russians and technology. So when you look at purpose, we had 70 some years of our purpose was go to college, right? Which
Mhm.
let public education hands free, not have to talk about pathways, not have to talk about careers, because our only purpose was get you ready for college and you'll find yourself in college. Now, 70 years later, we find out that was a very short-sighted, really kind of a gut reaction to something that look at what's happened to the trades. Look what's happened to a lot of these really great professions. And now I think there's some of us that are starting to see getting a job was always the end purpose. Even when you go to college, what's the end goal of when you're in college is to have a occupation that you have interest in, that you enjoy, that hopefully you want to make a
Mhm.
difference in. So now what we've done is we've rolled back the 1958 National Education Defense Act and said, no, our job in K-12 is getting kids interested in this curriculum by showing how it will impact what they do for the rest of their lives. And the work that Mike is doing in Luxemburg-Casco and what other of us are doing around this, that's what's really engaging our kids is they're starting to see, wow, this school really cares about me. That old narrative, that was kind of insulting. I'm a first generation college student, right? So if success is college, it means my parents weren't successful. That was that old narrative they
Yeah.
were sending at
Right.
us. And now we're saying, what do you want to do? I was just talking to a senior. My question is never, where are you going? It's what are you doing? And it doesn't seem like it's much difference, but that semantics
Mhm.
is different to our kids and something we need to just keep that ball rolling.
Yeah, that's very well said. Where do we think, because some the work that I do is pre-K all the way through 12th grade, and that's very new, to some districts. It's like, so a lot of the times we have the conversation, we're gonna tell our kids in first, second grade what they're gonna become, and it's like, no, that's not really it. But after the conversation, definitely people start to understand it. But why do you see it being crucial for that exploration, the career awareness piece, to start at early ages?
And we will kind of start talking about the Wisconsin Career Readiness
Yeah.
Standards, which I was honored to be the chair for, got to really work with DPI and see that. But, in our district, we started with really academic career planning in the high school, right? And then all of a sudden we started saying, wow, if we would put this in seventh and eighth grade, students could start selecting the classes that they wanted by the time they got in high school so they could take dual credits. They could graduate with a high school and a college technical diploma. And then also we started doing it in middle school. And we're like, wow, some of these concepts would really work in the elementary area. And
Mhm.
what the Wisconsin Career Readiness Standards are saying, it's not so much in elementary about you want to be a plumber or you want to be an engineer, but it's what does it mean to be a global citizen? What does it mean to be a team player? What does it mean to acquire skills? I really feel like we've done a really good job in the state of Wisconsin of highlighting just those high level career ready, life ready, and learning ready standards that we can start talking about in elementary and just create that continuum all the way up to 12th grade. And to that point, there is such a gap in those areas that actually I've been working with a company called Unitas that is creating a character education curriculum for kindergarten through fifth grade to integrate Wisconsin Career Readiness Standards while also giving students really exciting character education type stuff. We're working with Castle
Mhm.
right now. So there's some really great things that we're seeing. You get students excited about being a team player in kindergarten, first, second grade, and then you start talking about what their skills are. They're going to start in middle school refining those skills. And by the time they get to the high school, they'll be ready to really launch and do some really exciting things.
Yeah, and just to add a little bit of, so what are some examples that we could do? I'll share an example. We do what we call careers on wheels at our elementary school here. And we
Mhm.
bring in a number of different businesses, probably 30, right? And so we have our entire kindergarten group go through, and they don't see all 30. They may go to 10, and it's a 5 minute because their attention span is that goldfish, right? Maybe a very small goldfish.
Right.
But, how do you help them? And then it's just exposure, right? Like what it, the aha, right, for me is what did I want to do when I grow up? It's what my parents did because that's all I knew, or my uncle who I have a good relationship, right? So they have a good relationship with the school. Now they can see it. Oh, there's more than just being a teacher. And I think the aha for me is when I started doing site visits to businesses. And if people haven't done that, I would encourage you to do it because there are some amazing businesses that I did not even know existed
Mhm.
in Wisconsin. And when you walk through their door and you're like, wow, I didn't know this was here. And nor did I know it when I was in high school. So, how do we get students to know about the amazing opportunities? So, doing tours to those businesses. I mean, our economic development group here in Kewaunee County and then in Green Bay do a really nice, in the chamber, do a really nice job of putting on events for students. And I feel like that's however you can tap into your resources is crucial to make those standards come alive, right? It's
Yeah.
always about making how do you make the standards come alive and walk the walk. I feel that's really good. What are you guys doing, Mike, besides a couple examples I shared with you?
We really are starting to look at those I can statements that are in the Wisconsin Career Readiness Standards and trying to find ways to bring those things to life. We're lucky here. We have Jolly Good Soda, so Career Foods is right down the road here. So we do some things where we'll bring soda in and we'll talk about the science of soda. Like you said, it goes back to my elementary experience. If students don't know what careers are out there in their
Yeah.
community, how would they know what they're missing out on? And the more we can do that and build skills, it's really it's where it starts, and it's going to make that academic career planning in the middle school and high school even more robust and really do some great things from there.
Let's talk a little bit about the Wisconsin Career Readiness Standards, if we can. Um, the start, Mike, fill us in. Where did it start? How did it evolve? And I want to let you know, though, when the draft came out, us that were working at CESA's, it was, put in our lap, and I took them and ran with them right away. They're a big part of the work that I do when I call strategic priorities, revisioning, reimagining what we should be doing in our classroom. It is our leading work. But so I stole them a little bit. I love how they've come out even better. But give us the history. What is it?
This goes back to our first academic career planning, right? When was that? 2012 or so. We were told that we needed to start doing academic career planning, right? And I think some of us really embraced those and started doing some things different. And some of us put the E for E plan on our website and didn't really know what was going on from there. And what we've seen, during the same time, this is when we started Inspire Sheboygan, that later turned into Inspire Wisconsin.
Yeah.
We started having pockets of really excellence around this, and we had some resistance. And the best thing about Wisconsin is we're local control. You do what your community wants. But the peer pressure that started to happen across the state of Wisconsin, and this is where Mike and I, we hadn't met yet, but our story started converging, is we were starting to see students that historically were struggling in school starting to find excellence. One of my favorite stories, I had being an elementary and then a high school principal in the same district, I had families that transcended that whole, K through 12th grade. And I had a student who, so older brother ended up in jail. The younger brother was kind of going down that same road. And I had the youngest daughter come into South High when I was there. Her freshman year, she ended up having a D minus in our lowest freshman science class, right? Wasn't engaged in school. And all of a sudden, we put in our healthcare pathway. We used a Project Lead the Way at the time, was doing some really great stuff. This kiddo took this Project Lead the Way class. By the time she graduated, she had a full ride to Carroll College. I believe she's a nurse on a helicopter right now. Like, that's the kind of things that we started seeing. And now that started like wildfire. And I think the Wisconsin Career Readiness Standards are now taking those individuals that have seen that wildfire and doubling down and saying, hey, these are things we should start doing. And the other piece we tried to do with the Wisconsin Career Readiness Standards is we're getting bombarded with digital standards, and we're getting with redefining ready standards, and we're getting global citizen standards. We have so many standards thrown at us. I don't even know how to spell half of these things, right?
Right.
So we took a committee of, I think there was 40 of us, half from businesses, some DPIs, some school people like myself. And we started just going and saying, if we wanted to find a K-12 spectrum of standards we want every student to have, what would these look like? Let's take the best from every one of these and really start creating that portrait of a graduate, right? A lot of us are on that journey of that portrait of a graduate. To me, the Wisconsin Career Readiness Standards are Wisconsin's way of identifying this is what we want our graduates to look like. And there was so many things going on. When we started to organize it, we really started to see there was three distinct areas that were coming very, very clear on this. It was around students being career ready, students being learning ready, and students being life ready. And we started to really organize those different standards that are out there into these three areas and then spread them out kindergarten through 12th grade to give us all a clear understanding of what is a first grader should be doing, what is a 10th grader should be doing. And from there, for me, the best way that we're doing the work is the I can statements are out there. So if you look and see what the 10 I can statements that a first grader should be able to do, that helps you integrate that into your system. But the last thing on the Wisconsin Career Readiness Standards that I think for me ties in what we used to do to what we're doing is I really feel like ACP had a lot of success, right? And we really, I think our state did a good job. I know the schools I've worked with understood the know, explore, plan, and go, right? Those were things we all knew. They made sense to us. So as we were going with the career readiness, we all insisted, let's double down on that work. Too many times in education, we go with this new term or something that's a little bit different because that can sell a book. No, let's go with the time and true proven know, explore, plan, and go. So when you look at the Wisconsin Career Readiness Career Standards, you'll see know, just like Mike was talking about, that knowing, that's the elementary, right?
Huge.
When you goes more high school type things, right? But there should be a continuum from there. So as you can tell, I'm biased, but I'm really proud of what the state is doing around that work. And I've had multiple superintendents come up to me and say, that life ready career ready, life ready, and learning ready, I think I'm going to make those my core values for my district. And I'm
Mhm.
like, please do, because
Right.
that's right where it should be.
Yeah. Love it. Love it. Mike, how are you utilizing it, and what did you think when it rolled out?
So I'm just going to take a step back a little bit, like organizationally, like what are the buckets we should be doing work in, right?
Yeah.
And I think
Right.
sometimes we miss that, right? So academics is one of those buckets. Back to what Mike said, our purposes align. He uses different words than I do, right? But this is kind of like what I
Right.
put for my job description. And it's helpful for us when we're having conversations, we're talking about the same exact thing. So
Hmm.
academics is one of those buckets, and we emphasized academics so hard that we've missed some of the other areas that we should be working on. Social emotional learning, or in the real world, soft skills, right? Student success has nothing to do with what they know, it's how they work
Right.
with others. So how do we help them with that area, right? Co-curriculars is another area for students, and I would say the last one then is career readiness. Well, I can tell you a lot of schools have spent a lot of time in co-curriculars, a lot of time in academics. We're
Hmm.
starting to work on the behavior side of things and how we can be the best version of ourselves, but the career readiness piece has not been seen as a huge component of school. And I think that whole process, it's really, the shift is not just, it's how I, as a leader, see that now as part of my role as a curriculum director. It's
Yeah.
how Mike sees the role as part of a superintendent. And then how do all of our teachers see that as part of their role? And I think that's the shift and the pivot we're looking for, not anymore that I just do
Hmm.
this in isolation. Right. And so
Hmm.
I'm up here in the sky a little bit, but that's when you really can make that full transformational shift. All of those components are working together to help make that happen. And I feel like it starts with one person and then it gains traction. But that's where people, when you start doing this work, it's really hard because you're asking people to change behaviors
Yeah.
around these amazing standards. But once it starts going and you see, and when you can tell stories, that we could sit here and tell stories all day, 250 of them, 300 of them. I mean, I could share, I mean, from working on the ferry that goes across to Washington Island, we had a student drafting that in youth apprenticeship, right? To the student who was in special education that didn't see their purpose. They started welding at a local place right next to us, and that just changes their behavior, right?
Mhm.
S- School is not the purpose. The purpose of school is to help them find that
Yeah.
connection. And
Yeah.
when you do that, it changes their inner being and motivation, right? They're doing it because the teacher told me to. Now all of a sudden, I want to be a welder, or I want to be an engineer, or I want to do this. I'm doing it because it's intrinsically motivating me. And I feel like people, it's semantics once again, but when I'm intrinsically motivated about something, look out, I'm going to make it happen, right? And that's how you are, that's how we're all wired. So how can we help kids find that intrinsic aspect? Well, it's helping them find that purpose. So that's what we're trying to do from a big picture, get all the people to be, I do not like the word buy-in, I apologize for that, because
Yeah.
buying in is not that. We're looking at how
Right.
do people change behaviors to do the work, right? Like, and it's just, it's a grind. It's having conversation after conversation. We just don't talk about it once. You got to keep
Right.
talking about it, and this isn't going away. And so those are some of the things, like if I think about the standards and from a different lens, that I feel is really important to think through.
Yeah. Yeah. You guys are dropping some great gems, man. It's um, I like to look at it as a rational or cognitive investment, which leads then to an emotional investment, which is your believe in. Like I believe in this versus I'm going to buy it, right? And boy, the three of us could go on tour, I think, throughout the United States and have a lot of fun together. Um, but we might get in trouble too, probably. Hey, let's talk a little bit about the what. We talked about the why we need to be doing this. The Wisconsin Career Readiness Standards give us some of the what, but what does this look like? What does authentic career connected type learning look like in our schools? in a classroom, in schools?
Sure. So I'll start off. So what I've tried to do as a curriculum director is create a pathway through each cluster, not down to a very granular level. And so I will share with you, pick one area and start at a time. So every year I've built something new within that. And that's kind of what you were talking about, those pages. So I started with the youth apprenticeship program, and we built our own youth apprenticeship program with a career coach because I was trying to solve a problem for that, right? And then we built an automotive program, actually a manufacturing program. We have $550,000 worth of awesome equipment in there, right? Then we added an auto program. And then we added a diesel program. And then we added a healthcare academy. And now we partner with GB, right? And so the what is this, right? So if I can go, all those programs equal this. I want to be a 3+1 high school or a 2+2 high school. So what does that mean? Students are going to earn 30 college credits, whether it's a technical college or the university. We're just upscaling our skills or working with the union, right? Like we have partnerships with the union. Students are earning pre-apprenticeship hours by doing some of the youth apprenticeship work, right? So they're building their skill, right? So that 3+1 is they have high school, 3 years of high school credits and 1 year of college credit that also count for high school. Or the next step is doing a 2 years and then doing 2 years of college. So we partnered with Rising Phoenix through UWGB, and then I also am a partner and collaborative on the Healthcare Academy. Kids can earn up to, in the Healthcare Academy, probably 40 credits. We're working on a pathway to get even more, but in the Rising Phoenix, it's 60 college credits. So our students and families are paying probably about $4,000 to $5,000 for 60 college credits before they leave high school, which then lessens the amount of cost in college, right? So can we help them find that pathway earlier on? Then can they take advantage of all the cool programming that you offer? And I think sometimes we sell ourselves short on our dreams. And I don't mean that. I just like dream big, be bold, go for it, right? And that's all I've really tried to do. And then you want to know what happens? Students come back and go, wow, I'm in college right now and I'm so much farther ahead than other students there, right? That's a measurement of success, right? Like when they can come back and articulate that to you. And so that's really the pie in the sky, what we're trying to do. Currently, we just added a youth volunteer firefighter program, and we wrote a grant through the state, got $25,000. So that's for turnout gear for those students, a partnership with 9 firefighting stations in the area and 4 school districts. So we've also become very collaborative because we're only a school of 600 with other schools that are small like us. And how can we build all these programs together? And so our superintendents have done an amazing job of being highly collaborative in that space instead of trying to solve all the problems by ourselves.
And if I could kind of go in that, and that's why I love working with Mike, because I feel like we're yin to the yang on this. And for our viewers, as you start thinking about these different pathways, right? We need to have these introduction to these pathways so students can start finding their interest. But the other part of this, and really was the genesis of Inspire, was once you have these pathways, you need to start creating an increasing intensity of opportunities for students, right? And if you look at it, we need to start with just classroom visits. We need to maybe do some class tours. We maybe need to do job shadows. We need to do mock interviews. Each one of those increase intensity until we get all the way up to 400 plus hours in youth apprenticeship. And some of these intensities should be in elementary and middle school. Some of these can be in high school. And then we know by the time you're a junior and senior, if you know what you want to do and you know you're in the right pathway, go do it. And I always gave the analogy when we started this going back 15 years, our community had so many great opportunities out there, but it was like going to a library and all of the books in the library were piled in a corner, and we were supposed to dig through and use our own experiences to say, well, my student here wants to do a firefighting experience, my student here wants to do an engineering experience. And it was like digging through a library in a pile. We need to create a Dewey Decimal System for these experiences so it's easy for kids to find these when they're interested. So if I know I'm interested in firefighting, I can go to one place and everybody from peers to local fire departments can be in that place and have access to those students, and students can have access to those experiences. And that's really that next level for our state is creating these pathways, which we've done a great job with the Wisconsin Career Pathway Initiative. Now it's about increasing intensity of experiences so we have an experience for every age group, for every interest.
So, Mike, I want to piggyback off you here a little bit. You had talked about the youth apprenticeship, which is a huge passion of all of ours, and I know that, right? And so I just want to give the viewers a few statistics. Roughly 130,000 seniors graduate every year from the state of Wisconsin, and it fluctuates. You can look it up if that information, but right now we have 10,000 students who are in youth apprenticeship, right, in the state of Wisconsin, roughly. And I'm just averaging this out. You know, our passion is how do we help? Because we need schools, the why behind the youth apprenticeship is schools need resources, funding to make it grow at a bigger pace, because you can't just throw this into a school and ask them how to do that work, because they don't have anybody that has the capacity or time to do it. So you want to talk a little bit about some of the ideas that we're sharing around youth apprenticeship and some of the thoughts for the viewers of how do you get involved, how do you do more, all that kind of good stuff.
Well, one of the ways that Mike and I got hooked up is our schools are starting to see a very high percentage of our students choose youth apprenticeship, but it makes sense. If in their elementary and middle school experiences, they found a pathway that they really have engaged them. Right now, we have 33% of our students that are in youth apprenticeship. Our juniors and seniors, 33% of them are in. I know Mike's even higher than that, right? And when we're doing it, one of the things that are happening is we have regions that are doing wonderful things. We have employers that are loving having these kids in. We're starting to create those relationships in our communities like we've never had before. And now we're actually taxing the system to a point that we're hearing from DWD, they'd like us to reduce the numbers or kind of take it easy. We have enough youth apprenticeships right now. We have enough success. So Mike and I and a group of others have a petition out that we'll share with you, Scott, if you can get that out to your connections.
For sure.
We can't let government slow us down when we're doing these really, really great things. We should aim, Mike said 130,000 students graduate. We should aim for over 30,000 students a year graduating with some sort of career experience. It doesn't have to be youth apprenticeship, but what about a co-op? What about a job study? You can do some of these things. The momentum is starting, and I think we need to push past some of these barriers to keep it going.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Yeah, I agree with you. I see a great benefit of our youth apprenticeships, the micro internships, co-ops. It just does so much for us as we we haven't even talked about this. And I don't think we even have time, but the ability to grow those durable skills, right? A lot of the conversations that we've been having with America Succeeds and the durable skill wheel and all of that is that we get from our business partners that it's not the technical skills and or the academic skills that we see those that fail in our economic system. It's the durable type skills. So all of what we're talking about is growth around those durable type real life skills. So it is definitely needed. Let's shift gears a little bit here because you guys are just have so much knowledge around all of the what. I got to capture it. We got to meet more often. I know that. But how do we move towards that transformation? How do we get those that are right in our classrooms to understand, we need to shift, so how do we do it?
And I'm going to point to what's in Mike Snowberry's back, right? If you look at the wall behind it, to me, it's about organizational design. It's about creating a vision and mission around this. So For those of us that went through our principal and superintendent training, we know our vision and mission. If we really tie our resources to it, it can be the thing that leads an organization. So for Random Lake, our vision, and if you ask any of our students, they will know what our mission and our vision is. I think it's that important, right? So our vision is providing tomorrow's leaders with a distinct advantage. Um, our our purpose and our values are strong classrooms, strong culture, and strong community connections. And within that, you think of a portrait of a graduate. If they're strong in the classroom, they have good culture and good durable skills. And you know what? They have that academic career and they have connections in the community. That's a pretty great district. And my advice to, and this can be a principal, because I've talked to principals like, well, I have a superintendent that doesn't really believe in this. Like, well, then do it as an organization for your high school. What's your mission? What are your core values? Part of the reason I've been really geeked up about superintendents reaching out about the career ready, life ready, learning ready as their core values. Those are similar to what the strong classroom, strong culture, strong community connections are same as what Mike has in Luxemburg-Casco. You need to, as an organization, say, this is our North Star and this is where we're going. And what happens when you can compartmentalize it is strong classrooms for us is you have to be part of a PLC process. We need to have power standards. We need to have learning objectives on the board. Strong culture for us is about PBIS, about teaching the behaviors we want to see and rewarding those behaviors when we want to see. And strong community connections is really our ACP and Wisconsin Career Readiness Standards. And we want you to take your classroom and get it connected to the community. When I first started this 15 years ago, I talked to a business. I was a high school principal. I talked to a business. We were going to do something. I called my superintendent because I'm like, can I do this? Because I'm not sure I can do this or not. And he's like, yeah, go ahead. We need to give educators the right and the expectation that this is part of your learning. Now I have first graders that are walking over to the into our historical society, and they're helping organize things because they know that's part of their job description. And for me, that's the most important thing. All this happens when you have that North Star that districts should be pointing towards.
So I'm going to give you a book to read, Scott, or your listeners, right?
Sure.
So Peter Senge, The Fifth Discipline is the name of the book. And the purpose of the book is how do you become a learning organization, right? And there's 5 disciplines to do that. And Mike hit on 2 or 3 of them already. And it's a bit of a chew. I'm going to tell you that right now, as far as like, but it talks a lot about leadership. And partially how I got into leadership is through just reading so many books about leadership and stumbled into Initiative One. And their philosophical views aligned with mine based on all the research that I read, which is why Mike and I can sit here and talk all the time as well. But mission and vision. So you have to have a personal purpose, and you have to have your organization has to have a purpose, and you have to be on purpose, right? Mine is to inspire purpose in others. That's my personal purpose, right? And then you talk about team learning, which is your PLCs, right? We don't call it PLCs here. We got to work really good in team learning, right? And be good in team. There is also personal mastery. So as an individual, you have to have personal mastery. There's systems thinking, which means that I got to understand if I make a change in the system, it's going to impact other people. And how does all of that shift? And then there is also one other area which is not popping into my head right now, but that is actually, you don't know this yet, Scott, but Mike and I have been talking about the presentation that we're kicking off your event with. That is actually what we're going to talk about from a leadership lens, along with the standards, but how do I need to lead and have our organization become a learning organization and all the crucial components I need to be able to do that. We also have another slide, which you'll have to show up to the conference to see it, that walks you through all the pieces that you have to have in order to create change. And it's not rocket scientist stuff. It's just realizing what each individual who's part of an organization needs for us to change behavior. That's what we're talking about. So I really look forward to the opportunity to share that. And now you have a little bit more insight what Mike and I have been working on in the background for our presentation, because we feel leadership is really, and it's, if I wasn't afraid, what would I do? Right. Mm-hmm. And so stepping off that cliff and just going, and I've been tagged as not having a parachute when I step off the cliff and just don't know any better at times. And so, realizing all of this and what can really happen when you put your entire organization and people on purpose. It's just really cool. And what I've really tried to do, this is the other thing, is be a multiplier, meaning it's not about my leadership. I had an instructional coach who got to testify down for the science of reading down in Madison, right? Only school person he's a rock star, right? I have another, just amazing people that when you just let them go and have that purpose, wow, do things happen. And that's what we can do as leaders. And that's what we're hopeful to help shed some light on. When we present about some of those things, and hopefully that people leave finding their internal purpose to really execute and change the behaviors of adults in their district. So
some great stuff. Let's put a quick plug in before we end. We like I said, we could go for a couple of hours easily with our conversation here. But let's put a little bit of a plug in for our conference. April 29th and 30th. Mike and Mike are going to kick it off for us. I'm super excited to have you guys there. I'm going to promote you guys between now and then. I'm hoping to maybe we can connect with some of the leaders in our CESA 2 region. I've got some ideas on how to do that in regards to this webcast, because I'm going to showcase it. But to our point of what we're talking about, I don't think enough of us in our state recognize the type of work around that purpose that has to happen to be able to shift our whole system. And I think that that's really what you guys are going to bring to the table on that day. And I'm really excited about it. So appreciate the commitment to it. We're hoping that we have a great couple of days. We've got some other great speakers coming in from outside of the state of Wisconsin. We got some other leaders, some other superintendents that are going to be a part of the 2 days also that are in our state. So we're really excited to be able to move that forward and offer it for our state. So appreciate it. Hey, one final question for you guys. I like to end the webcast with in our tag. It's the future is clear. Teach like it's 2045. What do you feel? What do you think? What is education going to look like in 2045?
I'll let Mike handle this one first.
Oh, you're going to let me go first. Okay. I was doing the silence to let you go first. Okay. So I'm on my soapbox again, and I feel like this is a vision. I've been on here for now 15 years. There's other industrialized nations that have figured this out way before we did.
Mm-hmm.
And we have in public education, and I love all my public education friends that are out there, but I think we for too long have said, hey, we got this, we know what we're doing, and have been kind of a closed organization. And we need to change that. We need to open it up. I love the African proverb, it takes a village to raise a child. And that's what we're doing in public education. We're raising children, and we need to use our village. We need to listen to our communities, and we need to find ways to show students the great things that are going on within 30 miles of our schools. And when you start looking at this, when you start bringing people that are excited, that are jazzed up, that want to work with elementary kids, with middle school kids or high school kids, they start seeing that schools are economic drivers of what we're trying to do. What it's doing is it will get away from this polarized, it's the school's faults, it's the politicians' faults. And we're going to start kind of rising this tide for everybody. So I see us over the next 20 years creating a really symbiotic relationship with our business and our communities, that schools again become that center point of our communities that help grow our communities and help us really get ready for this, this next wave of technology and innovation that our students in our schools are going to have to be prepared for.
And I think to myself, how do we reinvent ourselves? And that's where Mike was really heading down. and a business has to reinvent themselves every 3 to 5 years to keep up with things. And the question I would ask the people that are listening, have you reinvented your school system? Have you pushed the limits? Have you challenged that? Because if you don't change, we all know what happens to a business that doesn't transform, it goes away. And so I also feel like that may be why you're seeing school choice. You're seeing more options available.
Mhm.
So you have two choices. You can either just keep doing the same thing, which we all know is the definition of insanity, or you can challenge yourself to say, if we didn't have a high school here and I had 650 kids coming through, what would I want it to look like, sound like, feel like, right?
Mhm.
And when you start thinking that way, you're like, "Whoa, why do we do that?" Well, that's how we've always done it, right? Like all those questions and things that people start to say, my challenge is this. And I always tell people I work with, a lot of times we always say adults get in the way of success. And so if I'm the problem, Scott or Mike, you can tell me I'm the problem, and it's slowing us down from getting to the purpose and the vision and our success, right? And so how do we get there? We have to say, stop making excuses, stop going into victim thinking, stop doing this and saying, what is our purpose and does this fit our purpose? Yes, let's get it done, right? And when you start having that mentality, it's really exciting. And so I guess that's the challenge. And I think, part of the conference, hopefully, the messaging is, can we help you as a school, an organization, the people in your CESA 2 and whoever else joins us for the conference, help you find your purpose and passion and then hit that button and go.
Yeah, love it. Love it. Good, great stuff. Great stuff. Hey, I really appreciate the two of you joining me today. Thank you so much. And again, thank you for making that commitment for our conference in April. If people want to get in touch with the two of you, how can they go about doing that?
The
The
best,
easiest, go
go ahead.
ahead, Mike.
Okay, I would say the best is an email. It's mtrimberger@rladvantage.org. Throw me an email. I get emails all the time, and I think it's important. Leadership isn't just about the superintendent or the principal or the director's seat. You can create this change as a classroom teacher. You can do this as a director. Leadership is just changing what you have control of and making it happen. So reach out, and I know Mike and myself, we're always happy to help that next soldier in this army.
Yep, and then it's Snowberry at luxcasco.k12.wi.us. As Mike said, I mean, probably once a week I get a new inquiry from a business or school or whatever, and we just want to help, right? Like that's really, like when people reach out to us, my 2-word purpose is to inspire purpose. Well, it fits right in my purpose. So I see joy in seeing people accomplish new goals and go and then change the life of a kid. And it's just that's that cycle that we live in. So don't be afraid to reach out, and then don't be afraid to go.
Appreciate it, you guys. Thanks again. And as we depart, remember, the future is clear. Take care, everybody.